You wake up, the same thoughts, the same reactions, the same emotional patterns that feel almost automatic. You pursue goals, you work hard, you try to stay positive, but outcomes remain stubbornly familiar. Slight shifts, maybe, but not the deep, tectonic shifts you crave. It's as though some invisible script is running your life, and no matter how much conscious effort you apply, something pulls you back into the same groove. Over and over again. Here's the truth. That pull isn't random. It's not bad luck. It's not destiny. It's the subconscious blueprint you've been carrying for years, possibly decades, programmed during childhood, reinforced by repetition, and rarely questioned. Today, we aren't here to talk about surface-level motivation. We're here to explore something deeper, something structural, something Joseph Murphy understood long before most others were even thinking about it. Murphy, a metaphysical philosopher and spiritual scientist, cracked the code of personal transformation through one vital realization. The subconscious mind does not respond to what you want. It responds to what is impressed upon it with clarity, emotion, and repetition. Not wishes, not hopes, not effort alone. This episode is not a lesson in belief. It's a breakdown of an internal operating system, one that governs your behavior, filters your perception, and creates the electromagnetic frequency of your identity. Whether you're aware of it or not, this system is active, right now, and it's running the show. Here's where it gets even more fascinating. Quantum physics, systems theory, and cutting-edge cognitive neuroscience are all catching up to what Joseph Murphy taught through timeless language. That reality is not a fixed sequence of external events. It's a probabilistic field of infinite potential, filtered through the projector of your consciousness. The subconscious mind is the lens that determines which possibilities resolve into your actual experience. Let's pause on that. Possibilities don't come to you, they get resolved through you. Murphy's three-step formula isn't based on positive thinking. It's based on energetic mechanics. And once you understand how it works, you'll stop trying to attract outcomes and start aligning with the specific reality where those outcomes already exist. Throughout this episode, you'll learn this system from the inside out. We're going to unpack how your subconscious actually runs 95% of your behavior without your permission. Why mainstream manifestation teachings often misfire, leading to frustration, disillusionment, and stagnation. The precise mechanics of impressing your subconscious with a structured mental image. How emotional resonance activates the quantum alignment process. Why repetition isn't about trying harder, it's about neural and vibrational entrainment. And how all of this integrates into your daily reality to reshape your identity and outcomes in real time. You'll also see how Murphy's framework intersects with modern understandings of quantum fields, probability collapse, and identity resonance. But this isn't abstract theory. It's a framework for traction, for results, for personal evolution that's grounded in precision, not platitudes. So, before we move forward, ask yourself, are you willing to stop chasing outcomes from the outside and start adjusting your blueprint from the inside? Because this isn't about changing the world. It's about changing the world your subconscious allows you to access. Let's get started. There's a process happening beneath your awareness. It's constant, relentless, and it's shaping the way you perceive, respond, behave, and create outcomes. This process is not visible to your conscious mind. It doesn't ask for approval. It doesn't seek feedback. It simply runs. And it runs your life. This process is your subconscious mind. According to cognitive science and behavioral psychology, approximately 95% of your thoughts, feelings, and actions are governed by subconscious programming. That means your conscious awareness, your willpower, logic, decision-making, is responsible for only about 5% of what you actually do, feel, and experience each day. Think about that. You may believe you're in control, but the vast majority of your responses to life are happening through a silent set of pre-installed programs. And unless those programs are rewritten, you're living in a neurological echo of your past. Joseph Murphy called the subconscious the builder of your body and controller of all your vital functions. But it's not just physical processes like heart rate or immune responses. It's the emotional and behavioral software running in the background of your reality. When you were a child, your brain existed primarily in a theta brainwave state, an impressionable, absorbent condition that records information without judgment. During those early years, you weren't analyzing experiences, you were absorbing them. Every word spoken around you, every emotional tone, every pattern of approval, rejection, success, and failure, all of it went in. And from that input, your subconscious formed a blueprint, a template of how life works. What love feels like, how money behaves, what success means, who I am allowed to become. Here's the part most people miss. The subconscious mind doesn't think. It doesn't reason. It doesn't discriminate. It accepts whatever it's repeatedly told, especially when those inputs are charged with emotion. So if you were exposed to scarcity, instability, criticism, neglect, or even subtle emotional inconsistency, those impressions didn't just leave psychological wounds, they created embedded instructions. Instructions that are still active, still generating patterns, still deciding how far you're allowed to rise. Let's go deeper. Murphy emphasized that the subconscious mind is impersonal. It's not trying to punish or protect you. It doesn't care whether what it's been programmed with is good or bad, helpful or harmful. It simply accepts what is repeatedly impressed upon it, and acts as the creative force that brings those impressions into material form. This is not wishful thinking. This is neuroplasticity and psychoenergetic mechanics working in harmony. When the subconscious receives a clear instruction, it doesn't just influence your inner state, it starts filtering your perception of reality to reinforce that instruction. It alters your reticular activating system, your hormonal responses, your attention patterns, and your behavioral micro-decisions to ensure that your external experience matches its internal blueprint. This is why so many people feel stuck. Not because they lack drive, not because they're lazy or unfocused, but because the program inside is incompatible with the future they consciously desire. Murphy's core message was direct. Change the blueprint, and the structure of your life must change. Let's explore how that blueprint operates like a magnetic field. Every thought you think carries a frequency. Every emotional reaction you experience charges that frequency with intensity. And when a pattern of thought-emotion becomes dominant, it conditions the subconscious to lock onto that frequency as its default setting. That setting is what you unconsciously broadcast into the quantum field of probability. You're not pulling outcomes toward you like a magnet. You're sending out an internal code that determines what probabilities you align with moment by moment. Your subconscious isn't just a personal vault of memories and habits. It's a tuning device, and what it tunes into is what you live out. Let's be absolutely clear. Trying to change your life without reprogramming the subconscious is like trying to play a new song on a piano without changing the keys. You might press different spots. You might try harder. But if the keys are mapped incorrectly, the melody won't change. Now, here's where things get incredibly precise and incredibly empowering. Murphy outlined a 3-step formula for reprogramming the subconscious reality blueprint. Impress a clear mental image. Fuse it with emotion. Repeat until internalized. This formula isn't just psychological, it's energetic. Each step corresponds to a distinct dimension of consciousness. The image shapes the structure. The emotion fuels the frequency. The repetition creates the entrainment. Think of it like planting a seed, watering it with emotional resonance, and exposing it to the sunlight of consistency. That's how new neural pathways form. That's how the subconscious rewrites its baseline instructions. That's how the quantum field receives a new command. And the best part? You don't need to believe it at first. You don't need proof. The subconscious doesn't care about belief. It cares about consistency. Feed it the same emotionally charged image with repetition, and it will rewire to match that input regardless of your doubts. So let's review what you now understand. Your subconscious mind runs 95% of your life. It was programmed through repetition and emotion, often before the age of 7. It does not reason or discriminate. It accepts what it's fed. It shapes your perceptions, reactions, identity, and outcomes. And unless it's reprogrammed with precision, it will keep producing the same patterns indefinitely. Next, we will explore why mainstream approaches to manifestation often fail. Not because the idea is flawed, but because the process skips the actual mechanics of subconscious communication. We'll expose why desire alone is not enough, and how Joseph Murphy's formula fills in the missing pieces to turn mental energy into structured, resolvable outcomes within the quantum field. There's a silent mechanism running in the background of your daily experience. It doesn't need your permission. It doesn't notify you when it's working, but it's crafting everything from your emotional tone to your financial results to the way strangers respond to you on the street. This mechanism is the subconscious mind. It's not a metaphor. It's not an esoteric idea. It's the actual control panel where your internal operating instructions are stored, and those instructions determine how your outer world resolves itself. The number is staggering. Over 95% of your behavior, thoughts, and emotional responses are subconscious. That means only about 5% of what you do is chosen through conscious awareness. The rest is habit, pattern, code. This realization alone should send a jolt through your system, because it means that your conscious goals, your desires, your positive thinking, all of it is only brushing against the surface unless the deeper programs have been rewritten. Joseph Murphy understood this decades ago. He didn't approach the subconscious with mysticism. He approached it like an engineer approaches a system, with clarity, with structure, with repeatable steps. But before any system can be upgraded, you have to understand what it's actually doing right now. Start here. Your subconscious records everything. It begins during childhood, when your brain is functioning in a highly absorbent theta state. During those early years, your brain doesn't question. It simply downloads whatever you saw in your household, whether it was emotional warmth or tension, abundance or scarcity, encouragement or dismissal. It went in. And because children don't have the faculties to analyze or question, the subconscious accepted these impressions as reality itself. From this collection of inputs, your subconscious formed a blueprint. That blueprint became the foundation of your self-concept. It established emotional expectations. It told you what kind of love you deserved, what kind of lifestyle was accessible, what kinds of risks were dangerous, what kinds of success were permissible. This is not philosophy. This is neural wiring. And unless this wiring is adjusted, the same patterns will express themselves again and again, regardless of what your conscious goals may be. Murphy emphasized one powerful point. The subconscious does not think in terms of right or wrong. It doesn't care whether what you feed it is helpful or destructive. It only cares about repetition and emotional charge. It is impersonal, unbiased, and highly programmable. That's the danger and the opportunity. For most people, the programming happens passively. Repeated exposure to media, family beliefs, past failures, traumatic events, these become the source code. And because most people don't understand that their experiences are being filtered through that source code, they try to solve their problems from the conscious level. They read more, they hustle more, they push harder. But if the subconscious blueprint is misaligned, all of that effort becomes friction. It's resistance against the very framework that's generating the outcome. This is the exact point where most personal development advice collapses. It treats the symptoms without treating the system. Murphy's framework doesn't bother with surface symptoms. It focuses entirely on reprogramming the source. Now pause and consider this. Your subconscious is also constantly scanning for coherence. It wants your internal narrative to match your external experience. So it filters your perception, primes your behavior, and adjusts your energy signature to ensure that what you experience is in harmony with what it's been programmed to expect. That's why change often feels difficult. Not because the world is against you, but because your subconscious is trained to reject what doesn't match its existing code. If your subconscious believes you're always broke, it will filter opportunities through that lens. It will trigger behaviors that sabotage income. It will distort your self-worth until you're pulled back into familiar territory. If your subconscious blueprint says relationships end in pain, it will generate behavior patterns and emotional signals that attract that outcome again, even if, consciously, you want connection and trust. The alignment must begin from the inside. There is no external strategy that can consistently override an internal blueprint. The subconscious will always win until it's given a new command. That command is not spoken. It's not willed into existence. It's impressed. And here's the beautiful part. The subconscious can be rewritten with structure, clarity, and consistency. Just like a habit, just like a skill, just like a muscle. Murphy's approach uses 3 pillars: image, feeling, repetition. This isn't magical thinking, it's structured entrainment. You impress the subconscious with a clear mental picture. You fuse that image with emotional conviction. Then you repeat that sequence consistently enough to rewrite the internal blueprint. Once the new code takes root, your actions begin to match it. Your energy changes, your choices shift, your timing improves, and the quantum field begins resolving possibilities that align with the new frequency. That's not attraction, that's alignment. Your outcomes don't show up because you wish for them. They show up because your subconscious has been tuned to a different probability channel. Next, we will unpack the fatal flaw in popular manifestation methods, and what Joseph Murphy taught that corrects the error most people never realize they're making. There's a growing movement of people who believe that thoughts create reality. They make vision boards, recite affirmations, stay optimistic, and try to vibrate at a higher frequency. And yet, they're stuck. Their dreams stay locked behind a pane of glass. Outcomes don't change. And worse, they start blaming themselves for not doing it right. The truth? Most modern manifestation teachings skip the part that actually matters. Joseph Murphy didn't teach people to just think positively. He didn't tell people to chant vague affirmations. He taught the structure of how consciousness impresses the subconscious, and how that impression becomes causative in the field of reality. Let's break this down without fluff. Your thoughts only create when they're structured correctly, fused with the correct energy, and repeated until they reprogram your subconscious operating system. Most teachings stop at desire. They encourage wishful thinking. They promote the idea that strong wanting is enough to shift outcomes. But strong wanting doesn't change subconscious code. In fact, it usually reinforces the opposite signal. Here's why. Wanting, by nature, carries the vibration of absence. When you say, "I want this," your subconscious hears, "I don't have this." And because the subconscious is literal and emotion-driven, it accepts the state of lack as truth, and continues to create experiences that validate that state. Murphy taught people to skip the wanting phase altogether. He instructed them to begin with a completed image, to feel the reality of the outcome as if it were already resolved. This is where most people struggle, because they haven't been taught the mechanics of how to install that feeling with precision. Let's look at what actually works. The subconscious doesn't respond to vague ideas. It responds to clearly defined imagery, fused with emotionally charged repetition. Vague affirmations like, "I am abundant," or "I attract success," do very little unless the subconscious blueprint already supports those statements. If the underlying code says, "I struggle with money," or "I'm not good enough," then those affirmations bounce off the subconscious like weak signals. Murphy's process avoids this problem by bypassing verbal surface-level input and going straight to the deeper mind with structure. The first component is specificity. Instead of vague affirmations, Murphy encouraged people to construct vivid, concrete mental images of the reality they wanted to live. Not, "I want a better life," but "I live in a peaceful home surrounded by nature. I earn $10,000 monthly doing work I love. I feel calm, empowered, and supported each day." This isn't fantasy. It's blueprinting. The more detailed the internal image, the more signal strength it carries. Think of your subconscious like a GPS system. If you input abundance, it doesn't know where to go. But if you input a precise destination, it can begin constructing the emotional and behavioral path to get there. The second component is emotional charge. Emotion is the voltage that powers the image. You could think a mental picture 100 times, but if it's emotionally flat, it doesn't impress the subconscious. Murphy emphasized the importance of fusing the image with feeling. That means experiencing the scenario as though it's real. Feeling the joy, the gratitude, the peace, the excitement. When that emotional charge is present, the image gets installed. And once installed, it starts working automatically. That's the power most manifestation teachers overlook. The third component is repetition with faith, not blind belief but disciplined consistency. You don't install a new program by running it once. You install it by running it over and over until it becomes the new default. Murphy explained that the subconscious doesn't resist change when change is given rhythm and structure. That's why repetition works. It normalizes the new code. Here's what happens when all three components align. You create a coherent signal. That signal gets transmitted through your energetic field. Your subconscious begins filtering perception, behavior, and belief to match that signal. And the quantum field starts to resolve probability patterns that are in harmonic resonance with your internal frequency. That's manifestation, not as mysticism, but as neurological and energetic coherence. Let's strip it down to what really matters. Clear, specific imagery. Emotional fusion with the already done state. Repetition until normalization. Anything less than that isn't creation. It's daydreaming. Murphy didn't ask people to hope. He trained them to instruct their subconscious with precision, because the subconscious is the gateway between your inner identity and your external outcomes. The reason most people fail at manifestation is because they never impressed the subconscious with a precise enough image, or fused it with a potent enough feeling, or repeated it with enough consistency to override the old program. This isn't their fault. They were given vague tools, general affirmations, shallow practices. Murphy's work corrected that by offering a structural approach to reality creation. The subconscious is programmable, but only if you speak its language, imagery, emotion, and rhythm. Next, we will explore the first component of Murphy's three-step formula. How to impress a precise mental image that acts as a blueprint for your subconscious, and why structure, not desire, is the secret to unlocking outcomes. There's a massive difference between wanting something and instructing the subconscious to create it. Most people confuse the two. They assume that because they feel desire, they've done enough to shift their outcomes. But desire is not a command. It's not a blueprint. It's an ambient signal that lacks direction. Joseph Murphy made it clear. The subconscious does not act on generalities. It requires precision. It requires architecture. Without a well-formed internal structure, it cannot carry out instructions. It doesn't improvise, constructs, and what it constructs depends entirely on the quality of the mental image you supply. Let's be precise. Your subconscious communicates through symbols, images, and emotional associations, not logic or verbal declarations. It does not parse sentences like the conscious mind. It absorbs sensory impressions. It organizes repeated imagery into coherent instruction sets. This is why vague goals rarely materialize. Telling yourself you want a better job, more money, or a happy relationship delivers nothing usable to the subconscious. These are abstract, undefined. They contain no coordinates. To activate the creative mechanism within, you must define the target. The blueprint must be specific, detailed, and sensory-rich. The subconscious needs context. It needs a visual reference. It needs to see what you are commanding it to move toward. Let's make this absolutely clear. If your mental image is blurry, your results will be, too. Murphy emphasized this repeatedly. The clearer the image, the more instructive it becomes. Think of the subconscious as a builder with perfect loyalty but no creativity. It will follow the plans exactly, but it cannot guess what you want. It will construct the last stable set of instructions it was given. If those instructions are ambiguous, incomplete, or contradictory, it defaults to past patterns. So how do you create a usable mental image? Start by defining outcomes as finished states, not processes. For example, don't visualize the steps to get wealthy. Visualize yourself as already wealthy. See the environment. Hear the conversations. Notice the behaviors. Engage the senses. Make it feel complete. The subconscious responds to completed realities, not unfinished plans. Next, integrate context. If you want a specific income, see the account balance. See yourself logging in, feeling calm. If you want a new home, see yourself walking through it, touching the surfaces, experiencing the ambient peace. If you want emotional freedom, Picture yourself responding to situations with composure, clarity, and presence. Murphy taught this by having people construct inner movies. These weren't fantasies. They were templates. They formed the raw material the subconscious would use to reorient identity and align perception. You might be wondering, isn't imagination just fantasy? Not in this context. Imagination, when structured and repeated, becomes instruction. It sets the frequency. It adjusts the internal settings. It reconfigures your self-image. And when the self-image changes, everything follows. There's an energetic reason behind this as well. The quantum field does not respond to idle thoughts. It responds to sustained, coherent, emotionally charged focus. A well-formed mental image isn't just an idea, it's a tuning device. It begins resolving probability into structure. This isn't metaphysics. This is structure-behavior linkage. When your subconscious accepts an image as real, it will automatically begin adjusting your behavior to support that image. You'll notice different opportunities. You'll gravitate toward new environments. You'll begin rejecting situations that contradict the new template. That's not law of attraction. That's subconscious enforcement. Murphy also stressed the importance of exclusivity. You cannot hold two contradictory images in your mind and expect resolution. If you visualize wealth but constantly entertain fear of poverty, the subconscious remains confused. It receives conflicting commands. You must choose. The mental image must become dominant. Repetition isn't just about frequency, it's about priority. The image must carry more emotional weight, more clarity, more attention than any competing narrative. Here's a key insight from Murphy that many overlook. The subconscious will always follow the stronger image. Not the more logical one. Not the more convenient one. The stronger one. Strength here means emotional intensity combined with vivid sensory imprint. So if your current self-image has years of reinforcement, years of being broke, stuck, rejected, you must install a new image with greater clarity, greater intensity, and greater consistency than the one it replaces. This is not a passive act. This is mental architecture. Murphy offered practical guidance for how to do this. First, choose the outcome. Be specific. Not a car, but a new black Tesla Model 3, paid in full, parked in my driveway. Not freedom, but I work remotely with full control of my time, earning $12,000 monthly doing meaningful work. Then close your eyes. Picture the outcome as already done. Not in the future. Now, in the present tense. Involve your senses. What do you hear? What do you smell? What emotions are present in that moment? What are you doing that confirms this reality is real? Stay in that image for several minutes. Let it become stable. Then repeat that image multiple times daily, especially before sleep, when the subconscious is most impressionable. Each time you repeat it, make it richer. Add detail. Add emotional intensity. Refine the blueprint. Eventually, this image becomes the new normal for the subconscious. Once it accepts the image, it begins organizing your reality to match it. That's the essence of step 1. Create a clear mental image. Not a fantasy, not a hope, a vivid, emotionally imprinted internal structure that the subconscious can follow. This is not optional. It's foundational. No image, no instruction. No instruction, no outcome. Next, we will examine why this mental image must be experienced as real, and how your brain is wired to treat inner pictures as actual experiences, making them one of the most potent tools in your entire consciousness toolkit. There is one function of your brain that, once understood, gives you enormous power over your reality. This function is simple but profound. Your brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined event and a real one. It responds to imagery as though it were experience. It triggers hormonal changes. It shifts neurochemistry. It alters emotional states. And more importantly, it updates your identity map based on what it thinks is happening. Joseph Murphy leveraged this fact long before neuroscience caught up. He instructed people to create what he called a mental movie, a structured, repeated inner scenario that represented the desired reality already completed. These weren't idle daydreams. They were rehearsals, installations, training sessions for the subconscious mind. Let's be clear. When you vividly imagine yourself succeeding, your brain activates the same neural circuits as it would if you were actually succeeding. That means you can rehearse success neurologically before it happens externally. This changes everything. It means you can condition confidence before you've achieved the outcome. You can trigger feelings of wealth before money enters your account. You can install patterns of health, love, freedom by consistently replaying a mental movie that contains those realities in full detail. Now let's break down how to build and apply this method effectively. First, understand the mechanism. The brain uses imagery to construct expectations. Those expectations determine what emotions are activated, what decisions feel natural, and what behaviors feel safe. When you repeatedly run a mental movie, you're building a new expectation framework. You're teaching your nervous system, this is what we're moving toward. This is who we are becoming. And because the subconscious does not resist clearly repeated, emotionally charged instructions, it begins to adopt the movie as reality. Murphy taught people to run their mental movie nightly, just before sleep, in the alpha state, eyes closed, body relaxed, and focus entirely absorbed in the imagined scenario. He emphasized 3 requirements. Simplicity, the scene must be short and focused. Just a few moments that fully capture the desired outcome. Emotion, you must feel the emotion of the scene as if it were truly happening. Joy, gratitude, relief, empowerment. These are the activators. Repetition, the movie must be played every day. Ideally multiple times, until it becomes more real internally than your current external reality. Let's build an example. Say you want to become a confident public speaker. Your mental movie could be a 20-second loop where you're walking off a stage to loud applause. You feel strong, relaxed, accomplished. You smile, shake hands, and walk with pride. That's it. Not an hour-long fantasy. Just 20 seconds. But it must be repeated. With full feeling. With immersive clarity. Why short? Because short loops are easier to memorize, easier to charge with emotion, and more likely to override competing images. Here's what starts to happen as this practice continues. Your brain rewires itself to accept the new self-image. Your subconscious installs new expectations and filters out contradictory ones. Your emotions shift to match the imagined success. Your behavior begins to align, subtly at first, then radically. And because emotion is the language of the quantum field, the vibrational frequency you emit changes. That frequency influences your timing, your encounters, your insights. Outcomes begin adjusting, not because you chased them, but because your internal image created coherence. There's more. Murphy stressed that this movie must be experienced in the first person. You're not watching yourself from the outside. You're looking through your own eyes. You're in the body, hearing the sounds, feeling the emotions. This immersive perspective signals to the subconscious, this is mine. It accepts the scene as a real experience and begins organizing your internal chemistry accordingly. Over time, this process upgrades your self-image. And once the self-image changes, everything changes. People begin treating you differently. Opportunities appear more accessible. Your voice changes. Your posture shifts. You stop tolerating what doesn't match the image you've installed. That's alignment. It's not an overnight event. It's a gradual shift, but it's undeniable and irreversible once the new program stabilizes. Let's be specific again. You are not trying to convince the subconscious. You are not asking for permission. You are installing a new reference point. That reference point becomes the gravitational center of your energy. Everything else orients around it. The mental movie is not a luxury. It is a requirement. Without it, your subconscious continues using the old footage. The footage filled with doubt, limitation, and past trauma. You don't change reality by reacting to it. You change it by overriding it. Murphy didn't offer magic. He offered a method. Now you have that method in your hands. Next, we will uncover the second step in Murphy's framework. Why emotion is not just an afterthought, but the actual activator that turns inner imagery into quantum resonance. The mind forms the blueprint, but it's emotion that breathes life into it. This is the part most people treat as optional. They visualize, they affirm, they rehearse outcomes in their minds, but it all remains flat. The image may be precise, the scenario may be clear, but if it's emotionally neutral, the subconscious does not register it as real. Emotion is the voltage. It's the activator. Without it, the internal signal is too weak to make an impression. Joseph Murphy emphasized that feeling is what imprints the subconscious. Not logic, not repetition by itself, not even desire, feeling. He was unapologetically clear about this. You must feel the thing you desire is yours now, not later, not after proof arrives. Now, because the subconscious operates in the eternal present. It does not understand someday. It only responds to now. Let's break down why this matters so much. Your emotional state isn't just a reaction, it's a frequency. It sets the tone for what your subconscious considers normal. If your internal state is one of fear, lack, or tension, then that becomes the signal your subconscious uses to interpret the world. It adjusts your perception to validate that frequency. It edits what you notice. It shapes what you magnetize. That's not philosophy. That's neurophysiology and field resonance in action. When you attach a clear image to a strong emotion, you're creating a signal that your subconscious treats as real. It doesn't ask whether the event actually happened. It only tracks the level of coherence and charge. That's the key. You can repeat the most beautiful mental movie every night, but if your emotional state contradicts the image, your subconscious defaults to the feeling. It trusts the feeling more than the words, more than the visuals, because emotion carries weight. It's embodied. It moves energy. Murphy taught that the feeling of fulfillment is more causative than the desire itself. The desire often points to absence, but the feeling of fulfillment signals presence. And that signal begins instructing the subconscious to treat the desired reality as normal. Let's be clear about the nature of this feeling. It is not excitement. It is not hyperpositivity. It's not hype. It is the quiet, stable, embodied feeling that something is already done. A sense of peace, certainty, calm ownership. Murphy referred to this as feeling the reality of the state assumed. That means embodying the outcome so deeply that your nervous system believes it's real, even before physical evidence appears. You must train yourself to access the emotional state associated with the outcome. That state is what impresses the subconscious. That state is what collapses probability into actuality. That state is what brings coherence between thought and energy. Now let's get precise on how to generate this emotional signal. Start with your image. Let's say your goal is emotional freedom. You want to stop reacting to every trigger. You want to walk through life with ease and confidence. You build the mental image. You're in a high-pressure situation, and you remain calm. You feel centered, clear, grounded. You speak with clarity. You move with confidence. Now you bring in the emotional tone. You feel the peace. You breathe it in. You feel the expansion in your chest, the release of tension in your gut. You experience yourself as free, not theoretically but somatically. This is what creates the impression. The brain releases neurotransmitters to match the imagined state. Hormones shift. Heart rate adjusts. Muscles respond. That physiological response is what installs the new pattern into the subconscious. Over time, this becomes your default. But repetition without emotional presence won't do it. You must generate the feeling deliberately, consistently, and with full body engagement. This is why people often say their affirmations aren't working. They recite words, but the emotional frequency behind the words contradicts the message. You can say, "I am abundant" 10,000 times. But if you feel fear every time you open a bill, the subconscious isn't listening to your words. It's responding to your feeling. That's not failure. That's feedback. Murphy suggested that the best time to impress the feeling is when you are in a relaxed, suggestible state, such as right before sleep or immediately after waking. In those moments, the conscious mind's filter weakens, and the subconscious becomes highly receptive. He also taught that the feeling must be rehearsed, not waited for. You don't wait until you feel confident to rehearse confidence. You generate the feeling of confidence first, and then the behavior follows. That reverses the ordinary logic of the world. The world teaches, once you have the result, then you can feel the feeling. Murphy taught, once you feel the feeling, then the result must follow. Because the subconscious must validate what it feels repeatedly. This is the energetic basis of self-fulfilling prophecy. When you embody the feeling of success, the subconscious accepts success as normal. It guides you toward behaviors and perceptions that match that normal. And the field responds. But if you stay in the emotional state of lack, no matter how vivid your vision, the subconscious holds its position. Let's go deeper. Emotions don't just affect the mind. They affect your heart field, an electromagnetic field measurable up to several feet outside the body. This field shifts based on your emotional state, and that shift influences interactions, opportunities, timing. It's not mystical, it's measurable. When Murphy spoke of impressing the subconscious with feeling, he was tapping into this truth. Your body becomes a transmitter. That transmission changes what your subconscious edits into your experience. Now, this doesn't mean you need to be emotionally perfect. It doesn't mean you must never feel doubt or fear. It means that every day you must rehearse the feeling of the desired outcome with enough consistency that it begins to dominate your emotional baseline. That is training. That is practice. And that is creation. Murphy's method works because it speaks the language of the subconscious. Images fused with emotion, reinforced with repetition. Without the emotional tone, the image is hollow. But when the image is drenched in feeling, the subconscious receives the command. You stop asking for outcomes and start living from the inner reality where they are already true. Next, we will explore how to access the state of already done, and how to train your subconscious to accept success not as a goal, but as a default identity state. There's a fundamental shift that occurs when your mind and body begin operating from the state of completion. Not longing, not striving, but fulfillment. This shift is the secret beneath every method Joseph Murphy ever taught. It's the turning point where effort ends and alignment begins. Accessing the state of already done is not a fantasy. It's a neurological command, a psychoenergetic alignment, and it changes everything. The state of already done isn't pretending. It's not hoping. It's not even believing. It's embodying. It's living internally as though the desired outcome is not a possibility, but a memory. That might sound strange, but it's exactly how the subconscious accepts new programs, through repeated, emotionally vivid experience, regardless of whether that experience is internal or external. To your subconscious, there is no distinction. Murphy taught people to act, speak, think, and feel as if the thing they desire is already a fact. Not someday. Not maybe. Now. This approach removes the gap between desire and outcome. And that removal of the gap is what aligns your energy with the specific version of reality where the outcome is already resolved. Let's be clear, your future self, the one living the desired outcome, already exists as a probability pattern. Your job is not to force that version into being. Your job is to synchronize with it by embodying the state that version already lives in. That means matching its thoughts, its feelings, its decisions, its expectations. This is not acting. It's integration. You're training your nervous system to treat the outcome as familiar. And once it's familiar, it becomes inevitable. Murphy explained that faith is not hoping without evidence. It's acting from the reality of fulfillment before the senses confirm it. That might feel radical, but it's how all change works. When someone changes their identity, from smoker to non-smoker, from shy to confident, they don't wait for the world to validate it. They begin operating from the new identity, and the world responds. Let's build an example. Say your goal is to feel deeply secure in relationships. Your old self-image may be wired with rejection, abandonment, fear of being unlovable. But your future self, the one already living in mutual trust and respect, doesn't think that way, doesn't feel that way, doesn't respond that way. So you begin to embody that version. You ask, how would I respond today if I already had the love I used to chase? How would I speak? What would I tolerate? What would I expect? Then you live from those answers. This process begins reconditioning the subconscious. You're feeding it the behaviors and emotional cues of a completed reality. And it begins matching your internal experience to that framework. That's the state of already done. It's not fake. It's not wishful. It's training. You are setting the thermostat of your self-concept to match the environment you want to live in. When Murphy taught this principle, he used the analogy of a seed. A seed contains the full blueprint of the tree. It doesn't need to hope or plan. It only needs the right conditions. When those conditions are met, the growth is automatic. Your subconscious operates the same way. When you consistently generate the conditions of the future outcome, emotionally, mentally, behaviorally, the outcome begins to emerge. Not through force, through resonance. But consistency is critical. You can't embody the already done state once and expect the shift to hold. You must return to it again and again until it becomes the default state. Until it no longer feels like a performance. Feels like you. Here's how to do that. Define your future self clearly. What does this version of you believe? How do they act? What emotions are normal for them? Select 1 or 2 core emotional states to live from: peace, confidence, freedom. Choose the ones most aligned with your desired reality. Practice those emotional states daily through visualization, behavior, language, and posture. Notice and interrupt the old state when it arises, not with judgment, but with awareness. Then reorient. Over time, your nervous system begins treating the already done state as home base. You feel less urgency, less doubt, less effort, and outcomes begin resolving not through struggle, but through structural alignment. Murphy didn't say you had to work harder. He said you had to feel differently, not because feeling is magical, but because feeling is instructive. It teaches your subconscious what to create next. Next, we will examine step 3, repetition with faith. You'll learn why consistency is more important than belief, and how frequency becomes the bridge between intention and reality. There's a pattern that reveals itself in nearly every story of transformation. Whether it's a shift in health, wealth, love, or confidence. The change didn't come from a single insight. It didn't arrive from one breakthrough visualization. It came through repetition. Not just mechanical repetition, but emotionally resonant, consistent rehearsal of a new internal truth. That is where the subconscious gets reprogrammed. That's where identity shifts. That's where outcomes change. Murphy understood this better than most. He taught that repetition is the force that crystallizes new subconscious patterns into permanent structure. Not because the subconscious needs convincing, but because it requires reinforcement. Let's be direct. Your current self-image was not formed in a moment. It was formed through thousands of impressions, layered over time, repeated in thoughts, feelings, and interactions. Those layers formed your emotional reflexes, your behavioral defaults, your perceptual filters. That depth of programming doesn't unravel with one visualization or a single affirmation. It must be overwritten through consistent input. That's where repetition becomes non-negotiable. Murphy emphasized that one-off efforts, no matter how vivid or powerful, fail to create lasting transformation. The subconscious does not register novelty as truth. It registers familiarity as truth. That means the version of yourself you habitually imagine is the version your subconscious installs as real. Now pause and consider that carefully. It's not the most exciting image that gets installed. It's the most repeated. That explains why negative self-perceptions are so durable. They've simply had more airtime, more emotional reinforcement, more presence in your mental landscape, and so they've become automatic. To shift that automation, you don't need a better image. You need a dominant one. Repetition creates dominance. It trains the subconscious to treat the new image, feeling, and identity as the default operating system. And once that shift occurs, outcomes don't need to be chased. They begin resolving automatically through aligned behavior, expectation, and field resonance. Let's make this more practical. Murphy instructed students to repeat their desired mental scene, paired with emotional conviction, multiple times per day, especially in the morning before other inputs hijack attention, and especially at night when the conscious mind is quiet and the subconscious is accessible. This is not busy work. It's installation. Each repetition reinforces neural pathways. Each emotional rehearsal deepens coherence. Each moment spent embodying the future self reinforces its claim over your current identity. Let's correct a misconception here. Repetition is not about effort. It's about saturation. You're not repeating to convince yourself. You're repeating to condition your system. You're teaching your nervous system, this is normal now. This is what we expect. This is who we are. That message, delivered consistently, becomes instruction. The subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't ask for proof. It simply accepts what is felt repeatedly. That's the power of this step. It doesn't require belief upfront. It generates belief through consistency. In fact, Murphy pointed out that belief often emerges after enough repetitions have been made. Not before. That's a critical insight. Most people wait to feel ready before repeating the new pattern. But repetition is what creates readiness. It's what makes the new identity believable. Not logically, but energetically, emotionally, physiologically. You may wonder how much repetition is enough. The answer is simple until it feels natural. When the mental image stops feeling like a performance and starts feeling like a memory, then the subconscious has accepted it. When you no longer feel resistance to the affirmation, when it feels like you're just stating the obvious, then the program has been installed. Until then, repetition is your tool. But consistency is not just about frequency, it's about coherence. You must repeat the same message, not a dozen scattered ones. Don't confuse your system with multiple competing affirmations. Choose one clear image, one coherent identity, one emotional tone, and embed it deeply. Murphy also warned against what he called neutralizing the charge. That happens when someone repeats the image by habit, but without emotion, without presence, without absorption. This weakens the signal. Each repetition must carry meaning, not intensity. Meaning. You don't need to feel fireworks. You just need to feel real. Let's draw an analogy. Think of your subconscious as a garden. Every repeated image or affirmation is a seed. Repetition is the watering process. Water sporadically and the seed dies. Water inconsistently and growth stalls. But water with presence and growth is guaranteed. This is not about mental exhaustion. It's about focused reinforcement. Murphy recommended creating a ritual. For example, in the morning, 3 minutes of visualizing your future self acting from completion. Midday, 1 to 2 affirmations written or spoken aloud with focus. Evening, replay the mental movie as you fall asleep with emotional resonance. That's enough to begin shifting your emotional baseline. And once that baseline moves, your behaviors, interactions, and decisions start adjusting automatically. Here's the part most people underestimate. Repetition also neutralizes the old program. As the new image is rehearsed, the old image loses energy. It fades. Its neural connections weaken. Its emotional signature dissolves. You don't have to fight the old self. You just have to replace its airtime. Murphy's brilliance wasn't in offering techniques. It was in demystifying the process. He taught that repetition is not optional, it's structural. It's how the subconscious is designed to operate. Once you understand that, you stop waiting for transformation. You schedule it. The shift becomes a practice, and practice becomes permanence. Next, we will examine a crucial insight Murphy revealed: the importance of timing when impressing the subconscious. You'll learn why the final 5 minutes before sleep may be the most fertile ground for reality creation you'll ever access. There's a portal in your day that holds more power than any other. It doesn't require effort. It doesn't demand time, but it determines whether your subconscious receives what you want or continues recycling the past. That portal is the final 5 minutes before sleep. Joseph Murphy taught that these moments are sacred, because in that window your conscious mind relaxes its grip. Your mental filters weaken, and the subconscious opens wide, ready to receive the last message it hears. This is not romantic metaphor. This is neurobiology. As you transition into sleep, your brainwaves shift from high-frequency beta into alpha and then theta. These are the same frequencies dominant in early childhood, the exact window when your subconscious was first programmed. That means the moments before sleep mimic the neurological state where your blueprint was formed. And because of that, they offer the ideal conditions for rewriting it. Murphy advised making the final thoughts of your day intentional. Because whatever you think about just before you fall asleep gets rehearsed by the subconscious throughout the night. Your nervous system reviews it. Your memory centers integrate it. Your emotional brain anchors it. Now pause and ask, what do you usually think about before sleep? Regret? Anxiety? Stress from the day? Fear of what's coming? If so, you're not just reacting to life. You're rehearsing those states for 8 hours straight. And your subconscious is installing them as normal. That's not just unproductive, it's destructive. Murphy flipped that script. He taught that you must end your day in the feeling of the fulfilled desire. You must fall asleep while embodying the emotion, the image, the identity of the future you. Because when you do that, your subconscious begins running that script on loop all night. It installs it, reinforces it, makes it feel real. That's how timelines shift. That's how identities rewire. Let's make this tactical. Here's how to harness the final 5 minutes. Turn off external input at least 10 to 15 minutes before sleep. No scrolling. No chaos. Let your nervous system settle. Close your eyes and enter your mental movie. Replay your desired scene. Keep it short, vivid, and emotionally rich. A few seconds is enough. Immerse in the feeling. Not excitement, but peace, ownership, fulfillment. Stay in that emotion until you drift into sleep. Avoid contradiction. Don't follow your visualization with doubt or worry. Hold the vibration until sleep takes over. Repeat this every night, without exception. Even if the day was chaotic. Even if your mood isn't perfect. The consistency of this practice begins to reshape your subconscious priorities. Now let's explore why this works so effectively. During sleep, the brain consolidates memory and emotion. It does not differentiate between real and imagined input. If the final emotion you feel is peace, your brain will amplify that signal overnight. It rewires your amygdala and limbic system to treat peace as safe, as normal. Over time, your default emotional baseline rises, and your subconscious begins organizing your behavior and perception to support that new set point. You don't just sleep, you evolve. Murphy didn't just teach nighttime affirmations. He taught nocturnal instruction. He trained people to treat the space between waking and sleeping as a spiritual laboratory, a place where new identities are built. This is where you stop efforting and start receiving. The day belongs to action, but the night belongs to programming. You must choose which message gets reinforced during your most suggestible state. If you end your day with thoughts of failure, comparison, or regret, you are handing the subconscious a script of suffering, and it will continue to resolve your reality accordingly. But if you end your day in the state of already done, with a clear image and a calm, charged emotional signal, you are installing a new directive. And the subconscious, without resistance, begins reorganizing your reality. Let's remember, the subconscious doesn't need proof. It doesn't need approval. It needs repetition with resonance. And no window offers greater resonance than the edge of sleep. This practice doesn't require belief. It requires consistency. Do it for 30 days. Not casually, but as a discipline. Choose one image, one scene, one state. Enter it nightly. Fall asleep with it. Let your system absorb it. And then watch what begins to shift, internally first, externally second. Murphy's brilliance wasn't in theory. It was in application. This is your window. This is where transformation becomes cellular. Next, we will explore the most common obstacle to this process, doubt. You'll discover how to override resistance, even when belief feels out of reach, and why Murphy's method bypasses doubt by going straight to the source, the subconscious itself. There's a question that paralyzes nearly everyone attempting to change their life at the subconscious level. What if I don't believe it? This one thought collapses motivation, sabotages consistency, and turns a structured internal practice into a crisis of confidence. But here's the secret Joseph Murphy revealed: belief is not a requirement at the start. It is not a precondition for reprogramming the subconscious. It is a side effect, a natural byproduct of consistent mental and emotional input. The mistake most people make is trying to fix doubt at the conscious level. They try to think their way out of it. They argue with it. They seek evidence to overpower it. But doubt is not logical. Doubt is emotional memory masquerading as thought. It's the echo of your old identity resisting collapse. And here's the breakthrough. Your subconscious doesn't care whether you believe something. It only cares what you repeat, especially if you repeat it with feeling. Murphy taught this repeatedly. He urged people to act as if, to visualize the end result, to rehearse the fulfilled emotion, and to do it consistently without waiting for the internal critic to disappear. The subconscious doesn't reject a thought because you doubt it. It rejects it only when the feeling behind it is inconsistent or weak. That means you can feel doubt and still impress a new pattern. You can feel resistance and still install a new image. You can think, "This isn't working," and still be making progress, as long as you continue feeding the subconscious with coherent emotional imagery. This is how the system works. Let's break it down. The subconscious is designed to follow dominant input. It doesn't evaluate thoughts on truth or merit. It simply collects the most repeated, emotionally charged signals and updates your internal model accordingly. So, if you continue to practice your mental image and emotional state of the desired outcome, even while your conscious mind protests, the subconscious will still begin adapting. Because the subconscious doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in pattern recognition. Let's go even further. Doubt is not a block. It's a checkpoint. It's the nervous system saying, "This isn't familiar." That's not a signal to stop. That's a signal you've begun to exit the old code. Murphy advised acknowledging doubt, but not entertaining it. Don't argue with it. Don't try to kill it. Don't make it the focus. You simply return to the image. Return to the feeling. Return to the inner scene. Each time you do this, you reduce the energetic power of the doubt by refusing to fuel it with attention. Let's be clear about something else. Belief is cumulative. Just like a habit, just like a skill. The more times you rehearse the new reality, the easier it becomes to accept. The resistance doesn't go away by force. It fades by lack of reinforcement. So stop waiting to feel ready. Murphy never told people to eliminate doubt before beginning the process. He told them to act in alignment with the desired result regardless of their emotional turbulence. This isn't fake it till you make it. This is condition till you become it. The nervous system doesn't know the difference between belief and repetition. It only knows what it's exposed to repeatedly. Let's get tactical. Here's how to continue the process when doubt arises. Acknowledge the resistance without identifying with it. Label it old pattern. Redirect attention back to the image, the emotion, the scene. Don't argue. Just re-immerse. Repeat the process consistently, even when it feels hollow. Especially then. Trust the mechanism, not your mood. This is one of the most profound parts of Murphy's system. It frees you from the tyranny of needing to feel positive all the time. Because the system doesn't require positivity. It requires instruction. It will act on whatever pattern is dominant. Let's say you visualize success every night for 30 days, but your mind is filled with doubt the entire time. If your visualization is emotionally potent and consistent, the subconscious will begin reinforcing that image, not the doubt. Why? Because you've saturated it with repetition and feeling. You've established a competing signal. Over time, that signal becomes dominant. Eventually, the doubt loses power. Not through willpower, through replacement. This is structural reconditioning. It bypasses belief altogether. There's a beautiful freedom in this. You no longer have to wait until you believe. You no longer have to battle yourself to reach a perfect mindset. You just show up, rehearse the scene, generate the feeling, let the process do the work. Your subconscious will catch up. It always does. And once it accepts the new program, belief appears, not as something forced, but as something inevitable. Next, we will explore how this process connects with a powerful idea in quantum mechanics, that your desired future self already exists, and your job isn't to create it, but to tune into it through resonance and identity alignment. There's a frontier in consciousness science that changes the way we understand manifestation, not as attraction but as alignment. This frontier views reality not as linear and fixed, but as probabilistic and multidimensional. Within that field, every possible version of you already exists. The one with radiant health, the one with wealth and purpose, the one living a peaceful, centered life. These aren't distant dreams. They're active potential timelines waiting for you to tune in. Joseph Murphy didn't use the language of quantum timelines, but his teachings laid the foundation. He taught that the subconscious doesn't just respond to input, it orients you toward experiences that match the frequency of your dominant identity. You're not waiting for the future, you're aligning with it. Let's break this down in practical terms. Think of reality as a range of overlapping possibilities. Each possibility exists as a potential timeline. You shift between them not by effort but by identity calibration. That calibration happens through three factors: the image you hold, the feeling you generate, the consistency with which you return to that combination. When those three align, you begin tuning into a specific version of yourself. Not mentally, but energetically, behaviorally, perceptually. This is what Murphy meant when he said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled." You're not pretending. You're locking onto a version of yourself for whom the outcome is already resolved. That version exists in the field. Your job is to become a vibrational match to it. This isn't fiction. Quantum theory shows us that observation collapses probability into form. But it's not observation with the eyes. It's the internal signal you send through your consciousness. Your subconscious determines which probabilities become reality. And the subconscious responds to identity. So the fastest way to shift timelines is to stop identifying with the version of you that lacks, and begin living from the version that already has. Let's make that practical. Say you want to align with the timeline where your business thrives. That version of you already exists. That version has habits, boundaries, emotional tone, language, energy. You tune into that version not by wishing but by mimicking. Not external mimicry, internal resonance. You ask, how does that version of me think in the morning? How do they respond to setbacks? What do they tolerate? How do they manage their time, their presence, their energy? Then you begin acting from that identity. This doesn't require perfection. It requires orientation. Every time you generate the internal signal of that future self, you shift your position within the field. And as you hold that signal, image, emotion, behavior, the field reorganizes around it. This is timeline tuning. It's not metaphysical escapism. It's structural self-selection. Murphy taught this by focusing on identity rather than goals. He understood that goals create striving. Identity creates resonance. When you shift your identity, outcomes adjust to match it. Let's say your current identity is, I'm trying to become confident. Your future self's identity is, I am confident. Those two versions operate on different timelines. By rehearsing the internal conditions of confidence through mental imagery, emotional state, and behavioral rehearsal, you begin shifting timelines. Start small. You walk differently. You speak with more clarity. You make faster decisions. Others respond accordingly. Opportunities appear that match your new energy. Because the subconscious isn't just shifting your emotions, it's editing your perception. You see what you used to miss. You act where you used to freeze. You expect what you used to hope for. This is reality selection through alignment. It bypasses hoping. It bypasses force. Murphy called it acting as if. But the depth of his teaching was not performance, it was subconscious instruction. Every time you live from the future self, even partially, you send a signal, this is who I am now. That signal gets absorbed. And once it becomes dominant, the shift becomes permanent. Timelines are not crossed through chance. They are stabilized through identity frequency. You don't need to chase the future. You need to match its vibration. Your subconscious is the dial. Your feelings are the tuner. And your identity is the broadcast. The future isn't something you manifest. It's something you allow by becoming the version of yourself who no longer needs it to arrive. Because to that version, it's already here. Next, we will show you how to tie all of this together into a single daily structure, a way to make the formula not just a practice, but a personal operating system for quantum-aligned living. Understanding Joseph Murphy's three-step formula intellectually is not enough. Knowing how the subconscious works, how mental imagery impacts outcomes, how emotion collapses quantum probabilities, all of it remains inert until one thing happens. You turn it into a system, a rhythm, a daily operating structure. That's when the transformation stabilizes. That's when it becomes who you are, not something you practice, but something you are structured to express. Murphy didn't just outline a method for manifestation. He outlined a new model of being, a model that replaces striving with selection, replaces anxiety with inner alignment, and replaces waiting with embodiment. But like any powerful tool, the formula only delivers results when it is used consistently. So let's get specific. How do you turn the three-step formula into something you live with, something you rely on, something that becomes as automatic as brushing your teeth or tying your shoes? Start by mapping the formula onto your day. That means identifying windows of high subconscious receptivity, structuring your practices for simplicity and sustainability, and ensuring that each component, image, emotion, repetition, is active and aligned. Here's how. 1. Morning. Install the signal. The first 10 minutes after waking are pivotal. Your brain is still in a highly suggestible state. Alpha waves are active. Conscious filters haven't fully returned. This is when you speak directly to the subconscious. This is not the time for social media, news, or mental clutter. It's the time for signal clarity. Start with one clear image of your desired outcome. Something simple, focused, already done. Hold it in your mind. See yourself living it. Hear what you'd hear. Notice the environment. And most importantly, feel it. You don't need fireworks, just presence. Ownership. This can take 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It's not about duration. It's about signal quality. This sets your vibrational trajectory for the day. It tells the subconscious, this is our baseline. The rest of your thoughts, behaviors, and emotional responses will be filtered through that orientation. Don't skip it. It's not optional. It's foundational. 2. Midday coherence check-in. As the day progresses, your energy scatters. You deal with people, challenges, responsibilities, emotional noise. All of this can pull you out of alignment with the identity you're building. So you need a reset point. Murphy often recommended using short affirmations during the day, not to persuade, but to recenter. Choose one core phrase that captures your future identity. Make it specific, simple, declarative. Examples: everything I touch turns to progress. I am calm, grounded, and guided. I operate from total confidence and ease. My life flows in alignment with my highest frequency. Repeat this mentally or out loud if appropriate when your state slips. You're not trying to force a mood. You're just giving your subconscious a consistent pattern to follow. This is like hitting the alignment button in the middle of your day. A way to ensure that the emotional residue of the past doesn't take over the trajectory of the present. Even 15 seconds of emotional realignment is enough to reestablish coherence. 3. Evening rehearsal and reinforcement. This is where the power gets amplified. As we explored earlier, the moments before sleep are a direct line to the subconscious. The mind is quiet. The body is relaxed. The conscious defenses are down. Whatever you present to the subconscious in that state gets absorbed and rehearsed during sleep. Murphy placed enormous emphasis on this final phase of the day. Return to your mental image, the same one you used in the morning. Replay it with as much clarity and emotional presence as you can summon. Not as something you want, but as something already real, already yours, already done. Then let that image carry you into sleep. Your subconscious will do the rest. It will integrate the pattern. It will filter your dreams, your memory processing, your emotional recalibration around that image. This is where structural identity shift becomes inevitable. It's not force. It's repetition with precision. 4. Weekly calibration ritual. Once a week, schedule a deeper session to reflect, refine, and reinforce the process. Here's how. Reassess your core image. Is it still aligned? Does it still excite you? Is it clear enough? Review your emotional tone. Are you generating the right feelings during your visualizations? Track consistency. How often did you apply the practice this week? Were there gaps? Update the signal if needed. Small refinements keep the image fresh and energetically alive. This isn't analysis. This is maintenance. Think of it like tuning an instrument. You keep it resonant, accurate, harmonized. 5. Embodied action alignment. This is a subtle but powerful addition. Murphy emphasized that the subconscious responds best when your behavior supports the identity you're visualizing. So during the day, look for micro-opportunities to act as if the future is already installed. That doesn't mean pretending or overreaching. It means choosing actions that confirm your new identity to your system. If you're visualizing abundance, stop saying yes to scarcity-based decisions. If you're building confidence, speak up once today, even if it's uncomfortable. If you're aligning with love, treat yourself with the exact respect and care you want from others. These actions don't change the subconscious on their own, but they reinforce the signal. They close the loop between inner state and outer behavior. That reinforcement deepens the identity shift. 6. Environmental integrity. One more dimension that Murphy pointed to often, though subtly, is the role of your environment. If your space, habits, and inputs contradict your new identity, the subconscious receives mixed signals. Clean up your environment. Remove reminders of the old identity. Surround yourself with symbols of the new one. Limit exposure to energies, people, or inputs that contradict your inner work. Every time your environment reinforces your chosen state, the subconscious becomes more stable in that direction. You're not just working internally. You're restructuring your entire field to match the new command. 7. The non-negotiable nature of consistency. Here's the final reminder. This is not a one-time transformation. This is an operating system. You don't do it once and expect permanence. You live it. You run it. You update it. You commit to it. Because your old programming wasn't installed in a weekend. It was rehearsed over years. And though it doesn't take years to rewire, it does take discipline. That discipline is not punishment. It's alignment. You're building a new signal, a new identity, a new trajectory. And once that becomes your standard, everything changes. Your self-concept stabilizes. Your energy becomes coherent. Your decisions simplify. Your perception filters differently. Reality stops being random. It becomes structured around your internal blueprint. Murphy didn't teach superstition. He taught self-governance. You have the tools now, the mental image as blueprint, the emotional resonance as fuel, the repetition as code reinforcement, the sleep state as the gateway, the daily practices as structure, the action as confirmation, the environment as amplifier. All of these work together. You are no longer waiting. You are broadcasting. You are no longer chasing. You are matching. And the subconscious, loyal and obedient, follows your instruction. Not once, not temporarily, but continuously. This is how outcomes shift without force. This is how identity becomes embodied truth. This is how you move from wishing to wiring. This is the formula in motion. And now it's yours.